Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the May 2012 meeting of the Transit Committee, which is New York City Transit Authority, MAB-STOA, and Staten Island Rapid Transit. Once again, we are delighted to have with us our dynamic and hardworking Chair and CEO of the MTA, Joe Loda. Thank you, Joe, for being here with us again. Do we have public speakers?
We have one public speaker, and that would be Murray Bowden.
Oh, there you are down there. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is about the culture. Oh, actually, this is about the culture of the way we think. What's gone on here for the last 30 years was appropriate 30 years ago. But this is the age of Twitter, of texting. Cardinal Dolan yesterday started tweeting. Now, if the Cardinal can tweet on a regular basis, then we have to change the way we do business at this meeting. This has a dialogue between the public speaker and the people sitting at the table. No longer can you put that wall up that says, 2 minutes to ventilate, which is what I said the first time around. New Jersey Transit, perfect example, has a dialogue between the public speaker and the people on a board. If you're going to change the culture of this institution, as you so ably have with cleaning the tracks, the next step is to change the way you treat the public. We're here not to ventilate. We're here to discuss. Sometimes we rarely have an idea that works. I suggested iPads. The gentleman in front of me is doing it. He's multitasking. It needs to be common for each of you up there to have an iPad in front of you. And you're going to have to learn that what he does over here you can do from an iPad up there, because it puts you in control of what you're discussing.
Please sum up, Mr. Bowden.
Who said that?
I did.
Who? Oh, okay. Yeah.
You're over 2 minutes.
Okay. My point was things have to change, and maybe instead of you asking me that it shifts up there, just to change the way things go, make the chairman responsibility instead of you for cutting me off. I think that would work better.
Does that conclude the public speakers? All right. It is now my pleasure to introduce our minutes. The minutes of the April meeting are attached to the book. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve them.
Motion made.
All in favor? Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Now I can introduce Tom Prendergast, our dynamic and hardworking president of New York City Transit, and I understand that the preliminary results for April show a huge increase in ridership. And congratulations to you and all your hardworking staff on this. Take it away, Tom.
As we informed the committee in March, beginning this month, we will provide you with a report, a quarterly basis report on the use and control of overtime in the Department of Subways, as well as a report on diversity following the lead of the commuter railroads. I will now turn the discussion over to Carmen Bianco, Senior Vice President, who will provide you with a monthly update on the Department of Subways operations.
Excuse me a second, Carmen. Are there any changes to the work plan?
No.
Okay. Forgive me for interrupting you.
That's quite all right. Good morning. The subway performance results for the month of March and 12-month average where appropriate are as follows. Weight assessment, the 12-month rolling average for system-wide subway weight assessment was 79.3. In March of 12, that represents an improvement of 0.4%. from 78.9 in March of 11. The IRT experienced improvement in weekday weight assessment for the second month in a row as we continue to refine our skills in centralized train control from the Rail Control Center. In terms of on-time performance, system-wide weekday OTP was 86.2. That's a decrease of 0.2% from 86.4 in March of 11. Weekend on-time performance was 88.5. That's a decrease of 0.8% from 89.3 in March of 11. Significant improvement in the number 7 line OTP, on-time performance, and weight assessment continued again compared to March of 11, mainly due to the comprehensive track and signal rehabilitation work that has been performed. On the IRT, on-time performance this past March was basically flat year over year. There were frequent, significant weekday GOs, general orders, on the IRT, most notably the switch reconstruction north of Borough Hall on the Lexington Avenue line, resulting in slow speeds in both directions on the 4 and 5. In addition, the number 2 line was affected by multiple major incidents, resulting in a 4-day sub 50% on-time performance. Moving to mean distance between failure, it decreased in the month of March at 174,507 miles. It was down 9.4% from 192,527 in March of 11. The 12-month average was 170,206, relatively unchanged from the 170,410 for the preceding 12 months. Moving to key performance indicators, system-wide service KPI was 83.4, up 0.1% from 83.3 in March of 11. System-wide passenger environment survey KPI was 90.8. That's down 0.7%, 1 point from 91.5 in March of 11. For Staten Island, the service KPI is not reported, but their PES score was 87.1. That's down 0.5% from 87.6 in March of 11. Moving to the overtime report for the Department of Subways, the first quarter of 2012, Subways exceeded its non-reimbursable overtime budget by approximately $8 million. This includes a one-time payment of $2 million cash out in January for work done in 2011. An additional $2.3 million was incurred to address maintenance and inspection backlogs in the signal system. The Fast Track program completed so far on the Lexington, 6th, 7th, and 8th Avenue lines accounted for $1.7 million in overtime, including premiums that enhance productivity, for example, no lunch or having our employees report directly to work locations. However, the financial impact of Fast Track is expected to result in net savings in the future. Approximately $1.3 million of the overrun was spent on upkeep and cleanliness of stations, as well as booth coverage. Overtime expenditures through March amount to 8% of non-reimbursable salary and wage expense. We continue to rely on overtime to maintain a consistent level of quality service for our customers. Overtime is diligently monitored to curtail usage. Vacancies that are filled on overtime to avoid service impact, for example, station agents, conductors, and train operators, are closely followed, and aggressive hiring plans are in place to fill these vacancies. We continue to review work processes to enhance efficiency and productivity, particularly in areas of signal maintenance and inspection. Just to comment on Fast Track, we concluded our 6th installment of Fast Track on Friday, April 27th on the 8th Avenue line between 59th Street, Columbus Circle, and J Street Metro Tech, and our 7th installment on Friday, May 18th on the 6th Avenue line between 57th Street and West 4th Street Station. Our next Fast Track program begins on Monday, June 11th on the Lexington Avenue line between Grand Central and Atlantic Avenue. And later on in today's meeting, we're going to actually present some of the findings on Fast Track, so you'll have a full presentation on that. And that concludes the operations report.
Thank you, Carmen. Questions for Carmen?
Just one.
Andrew?
Carmen, what do you attribute this really low weekend on-time performance on the 4 train to? Was there a special project going on there?
Almost all of it's always construction related. It's due to the work we're doing on the weekends. Yeah.
But not the 5. So it had to be north of 149th Street, or?
Trying to find
We'll get an answer,
I'll get you an answer,
and we'll send it to all the board members, all the committee members.
Thank you.
All right, you ready, Cheryl?
Ready.
Oh, Chuck. Sorry.
I just have one quick question. Comment on page 3.18. If you look at the number trains, particularly 2, 4, 5, and 6, those numbers seem to be either stagnant or not subject to significant improvement in terms of the KPI. Is there anything that can be done to improve that, given the current economic climate?
On 3.18, their service, that's a service KPI, which is a combination of weight assessment, on-time performance, and mean distance between failures. So it's a weighted KPI. And again, when you're doing the level of work we're doing, when you're doing we're really concentrating on getting that work accomplished, but at the same time making sure that the service we operate is even. And so having the scores, if you will, using your words, remain stagnant is not such a bad thing when you think about the amount of work that goes on over the course of weekends.
I notice also that you have a somewhat spiffied up book, both online and in print, with some fancy charts with different color schemes in them, and thank you for updating that. Cheryl?
Safety results were as follows. The subway customer accident rate decreased by 8.6% for the 12-month period. In the month of February, the accident rate decreased by 21.1%, moving to 2.55 per million subway customers from a rate of 3.23 in February last year. The employee lost time accident rate increased by 4% for the month of March 2012 versus March 2011. The rolling 12-month rate decreased 1.2% over the previous 12-month period. There were 71 confirmed fires for the month of March, down 22% from the previous year. Additionally, fires decreased over the last 12 months by 13.2%. All fires were categorized as being low or average in severity for the month of March.
Questions for Cheryl Kennedy? All right, back to you, Tom.
Just one quick one. Cheryl, on the causes of the fires, it mentions debris on right-of-way. Looks like it's the majority cause of fires. Have you been able to correlate where those are related to the work on Fast Track, which is supposed to, take care of a lot of the debris problems? Is there a particular area that frequently has a lot of debris that maybe ought to get more attention, or is this just a system-wide thing?
We do track, trends in fires, but we haven't found a particular trends on a particular station. They're kind of spread out.
Is debris newspapers or litter or a combination?
It's a combination, yes. I don't know if you want to add to it.
And we will be, that's one of the things we're going to be looking at as Fast Track matures and we get more data, certainly looking at within the confines of the envelope of Fast Track, are we seeing improvements? But it's way too early to tell.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of Fast Track is you're taking a lot of the debris out of the tunnels.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But are our vacuum trains working fine?
Yeah, absolutely. We have 2 trains working right now. We average about 1.5 miles on each one per evening. So, yeah, they're out there. The availability, we've really concentrated on making sure those trains are running every day. So we got a full-out effort on that.
Fast
They're
Tracks.
getting a little old, though, aren't they?
Yeah, they're at the end of their useful life, that's for sure.
Fast Tracks will do a lot to build up, to address the buildup of large amounts of refuse in locations of the system where it's difficult to get work trains in. However, Fast Tracks, if you assume 1 per quarter only in the downtown sections, and you generate that debris on a daily basis, there's some areas. So one of the things system safety does is also rate fires by their severity, major versus minor. And all the trends are going in the right direction with respect to more minor, less major. And whenever we do have a major fire, there's an awful lot of focus put on what was the initiating point of the fire and what was actually burning. But the trends have all been going in the right direction.
Welcome, Joe. Our next report, if you're ready, on crime is from Chief Joseph Fox, who was slightly delayed since he did not take mass transportation to arrive here, but instead got tied up above ground. Joe.
Thank you. Good morning. As you may recall, last time I was here, I reported that in March 2012, index felonies had actually decreased 1.5% for that month compared to March 2011. During the month of April, there was an 11% increase in total index felonies compared to April 2011, 212 versus 191. As of May 21st, today, we have a 15.3% year-to-date increase in felony crimes, 1,019 compared to 884. And let me point out that at the end of February, our year-to-date total index crime was up 33.8% this year versus the same period in 2011. So while the number of total index felonies is still higher in 2012 than it was at this point in 2011, the percentage of increase has been reduced in recent months. I'll note that Transit Borough Manhattan has a crime reduction so far this year, down 2.2%, 315 crimes compared to 326 in 2011. After last month's meeting, our board member Farrar and I discussed the percentage of crime that we typically experience in each borough. So far this year, 31% of our crime occurred in Manhattan, 39% in Brooklyn, 13% in Queens, and 17% in the Bronx. Those percentages are generally consistent with the last couple of years, and I'll include them in my monthly reports. Along with our continued increase to make passengers aware of the vulnerabilities of being less attentive to their surroundings, particularly when using handheld electronics, officers assigned to the Transit Bureau continue to step up their enforcement efforts. Year-to-date arrests have increased by 3.7%, an increase of 654. Fare evasion arrests have increased by 21%, an increase of 1,883. And tab summonses have increased by 5.7%, up 2,213. And fare evasion tabs have increased by 11.2%, an increase of 3,007. This in part is due to our Operation Toolbox, which basically utilizes every available officer and resource. Another result of this operation was 361 wanted persons, wanted and ICODS investigation purposes, were apprehended. Team-led operations such as Toolbox still continue on a regular basis. Excuse me. In April, we also had some good successes in identifying and arresting some of the individuals responsible for the property crimes that we have been seeing in recent months, specifically the thefts of phones. For example, a known criminal, Chuck Woodlike and Yemo, was arrested by Lieutenant Kevin Callahan and Police Officer Mike Dennis when they observed him enter the number 7 train and sit next to a sleeping male passenger. He was going through the victim's pockets when the officers immediately moved in to arrest him, and upon this search after an arrest, he was found to be in possession of 4 razor blades, as well as an iPhone, credit cards, and an iTouch. And Yemo has 21 priors and is currently incarcerated. Another known criminal, David Gooden, was arrested by Transit District 2 plainclothes teams when they observed him enter an E-train and hover over a sleeping rider. Gooden was observed going through the victim's pockets, and when the victim awoke, he fled the scene and was later apprehended by the team. Gooden has 43 priors and a history of violence, and he's also currently incarcerated. To assist in combating crime within the transit districts, our auxiliary police units are being deployed into specifically identified stations, booths, platforms, and individual train lines in the days and times where we have the most crimes occurring. This concentrated presence in these locations are determined by our weekly deployment meetings with all of our units. These converging teams perform multiple tasks within each of the deployed locations. Their function is to support crime prevention units, provide public assistance, patrol on high visibility posts. This comprehensive approach using supervisors, police officers, and auxiliary officers is designed to effectively deter any crime within the deployment areas. With that, I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our auxiliary police officers for their incredible dedication and hard work and an endeavor to make a difference each day that they volunteer for us. Arrests like those mentioned here today and our district commanding officers' strategic utilization of personnel and resources, as well as our constant campaign to communicate basic crime prevention steps to our riders, are helping us reverse the trends of the past few months and year. Before I conclude, I'd like again to thank MTA Board members as this forum and its corresponding media coverage continue to help bring attention to these crimes, thereby better informing patrons of our New York City subway system to remain more alert. Thank you, Mr. Loda, Mr. Prendergast, and Mr. Bianco for your assistance, and I welcome any questions or comments or suggestions.
Questions for Chief Fox? Chuck?
Chief, I'd like to first congratulate you on the increase in arrests and summonses and other documented increase in the activity of your force. What troubles me is the following. The rate of crime in the subways is at its highest point since 2005. Last year, we had approximately 6.18. This year, we're up at 730. In 2006, we were at 6.42. Putting aside the iPhones, and I don't mean to denigrate that, on the iPads, the increases are very heavy in the areas of robberies. They're as well in felonious assaults. And my question to you is the following. A, do you have statistics which would show the manning that you had in the Transit Bureau during the years when there was a decline in crime, which started in the decline in crime in 2005, so that we can perhaps correlate the manning figures as compared with the crime figures? Number two, are there any affirmative steps in terms of additional manpower that you would believe could reduce these statistics or reverse the trend that is now going on? And thirdly, are there any other methods to do this? Because this is very disturbing. I mean, it's disturbing to you, I know, and it's disturbing to every member of the board that you've got these very significant increases.
Would you like him to repeat that question?
I think
Who knows?
I think I'll the first part, as far as the comparison of officers, Chuck, and the board members, I'm not prepared. I don't have the exact numbers of year by year right now, but I can get back to you either privately, Mr. Loda. But I would expect it to be a decrease from 2005 as agency wide. We've had some decrease in personnel. However, in our Transit Bureau, we've gotten a significant increase in officers in the last class. As you remember, 248, which proportionally was a pretty high number, that's given us a lot to work with. And the second part of the question was.
Well, the second part really related to what is it that we can do to stop this fight? For example, is there any useful purpose in trying to minimize the number of the officers assigned to things like stop and frisk and putting them in the subways to save lives?
Well, back when you introduced the second part of the question, Chuck, you said it appeared that you somewhat distinguished the iPhones from robberies and crimes, which is really not what we're finding. What we're finding is this increase is absolutely driven by the increased attraction in electronics, which is a relatively new phenomenon condition in our city and our systems, especially as I had done a couple of months ago when I showed you some of the visuals, where if you go into any car, it's considered a very safe environment, and it is, and people feel comfortable, obviously riding on subways and using electronics, and that's what our campaign has been. That we're not discouraging people from bringing phones into the systems, but we just want people to be more aware of their surroundings. So it's actually all the same issue.
Are they reported into robberies now?
Yes. What we actually have. Can you hear me? We actually. Are they reported under robberies?
Are they reported now under the robberies?
Well, if the objective of the crime, of the theft, is a phone. If there's force involved, it would be a robbery, and if it's just a snatch, it would be a grand larceny. So it's not so much it's not only the type of crime, whether it's grand larceny or robbery, but the item that we look at in our analysis, and we find a large percentage was still, I believe, higher than 40% of our crimes. The targets of our theft are, but I'd have to confirm that percentage because it changes week by week. But the percentage of our theft, the objective of the crime, is our electronics.
If I may, just one more piece. Does your bureau or does the PC's office, the Commissioner's office, track at all what happens following arrest in terms of the subsequent events, whether there's a prosecution, whether there's a walk? What is there?
We work very closely with each of the DA's office, and I'm very comfortable with the level of cooperation. That's why in the examples I mentioned, I believe both are incarcerated now, and we're told of the next court appearance. This is excellent. These two defendants here happen to have been arrested in Manhattan, where we, like the other boroughs, we get excellent level of cooperation and executive conferrals from district level to my level and the senior staff of the DA's office, right from the time of the arrest, off hours, weekends, through arraignment, and through the proceedings.
Other than more police officers assigned to your bureau, is there anything that you can think of that would be helpful to you in terms of reducing these numbers or reversing the trend?
All what I mentioned here, and as I mentioned in the last three appearances, thanking this forum for getting the word out as far as electronics and the media and the reports that come with it are a very powerful form of communicating those basic crime prevention techniques. It's a key strategy to crime, along with deployment and arrest. But it's a key part of the strategy.
Chief, as always, thank you and the men and women of the department for all you do.
Thank you, Andrew.
Commissioner Merdler raised an issue about the rate of crime in the subways being higher. Every month we get books that show we have ridership that it's at its highest point in 42 years on the weekends and somewhat similar on the weekdays. So Commissioner Merdler was referring to 2005. We have a lot more riders now. So my question would be, is the crime rate higher per capita, per number of rider, or is it just an overall rate that is higher?
Well, that's another analysis that I could explore further and get back to you, working with the actual numbers of riders. But clearly, if we have more riders and more riders with electronics and more riders, a higher portion of those riders with electronics, that could affect the crime rate. But those averages up to, I believe, in 2000, and we still have to remember the perspective that while Mr. Mulder, you mentioned the number of crimes in 2005, we were at 7 in all of 2011. So we're still looking at 7 crimes a day in a system used by millions.
And there's a couple of other factors at work. We're actually encouraging the use of electronics by wiring stations for their use,
Yes.
right? And the carriers have recently announced that they will lock out stolen phones. So they're moving in that direction, which makes them just a valuable paperweight once they're locked out.
That when we get to that point, that will obviously be very, very helpful for law enforcement.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Back to you, Tom.
Forgive me, Mr. Chairman, may I have a question? Chief Fox, I want to also thank you for your report, and especially its completeness. Even though the story that you told of the 2 individuals who were arrested and are currently incarcerated, even though that's anecdotal in nature, I would frankly like to know how that case is followed up and what happened to them by the next meeting. And it might be useful to see how their case is ultimately disposed of as part of this report.
I will do that. That's a great
Thank you,
question.
Chief.
Thank you.
on you if it isn't too great an imposition. At the last meeting, you gave us a case as well of a fellow who had a record as long as your arm who was arrested. If we could just track 2 or 3 people and see what happens in the system, not just in Manhattan, but the other boroughs. If that's possible, if it causes you too big a problem, forget it. But I just think it's worth knowing.
Let me, I think I'll have to speak with Mr. Loader and just consider exactly, and maybe a separate conversation after this forum with exactly what you're looking for, because I mean, these 2 cases that we mentioned, I mean, absolutely, these are significant arrests, and I am tracking them as well. So to share that would make sense, but to work that into a report of arrests all month, I just need to know exactly what we're looking to do.
All right, on to finance and ridership.
Preliminary March 2012 fare box revenue was $319.3 million, $1 million, or 0.3% above budget. Year-to-date fare box revenue was $902.2 million, $0.4 million less below budget. Average non-student fare in March was $1.63 and constant $19.96. The March average fare fell from $1.38 in 1996 to $1.09 in 2012.
That's my favorite statistic, folks. When the fare went to $1.50 in 1996, it is in 1996 dollars a day, $1.09 plus free transfers, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Preliminary March 2012 operating expenses before depreciation were below budget by $13.2 million. Labor expenses were essentially on budget, as higher overtime expenses and the unfavorable timing of pension expenses were largely offset by underruns in payroll expenses. Non-labor expenses were below budget by just over $13 million, due mostly to the favorable timing of several expenses and paratransit underruns, partly offset by higher fuel revenues. Year-to-date operating expenses were less than budget by $12 million. Ridership, March 2012 ridership totaled $209 million, 1% above budget. Year-to-date ridership was $582.9 million, 2.2% above budget, and March 2012 and year-to-date ridership both have benefited from unseasonably warm and dry weather. March 2012 average weekday subway ridership was 5.5 million, an increase of just under 2% from March 2011. This was the highest average weekday subway ridership of any month in over 45 years. March 2012 average weekday local bus ridership was 2.2 million, an increase of 0.2% from March 2011. Average weekday bus express ridership was 45,000, an increase of 4% from March 2011. And average weekday paratransit ridership was 32,000, an increase of 3.5% from the prior year. An early look at the preliminary April 2012 financial report shows the total fare box revenue was $1.3 million above budget, and the preliminary April 2012 operating expenses were favorable to budget by $3.1 million. That concludes the financial report.
Okay. Who's up? Fred?
Capital Program, Fred Smith.
Fred?
Good morning. Looking at capital program results, awards during March 2012 totaled $109 million, including in our stations program, renewal projects at 5 stations on the Myrtle Avenue line in Queens, and a project to provide full ADA accessibility at the Kingsbridge Road station on the I&D Concourse subway line in the Bronx.
Isn't that pronounced Myrtle? It really is Myrtle? Okay.
Also, a project to provide overcoat painting to approximately 3 miles of elevated structure on the Jamaica line, reconstruction of several track segments on our main line out of our 2012 program, and a small business mentoring project to address street stairs at the 7th Avenue station on the Brighton line in Brooklyn. Meanwhile, projects achieving substantial completion totaled $534 million, including the largest, which is our PACIS project. As you know, we took beneficial use of that project in December. The last few months have been just to clean up the remaining deliverables, drawings, and testing. Also, 4 track and switch construction projects as part of the 2011 annual track program. The completion of the equipping of 64 R160 rail cars. That with the R143 fleet gives us 276 cars that are equipped with CBTC to run on the L line. We also accepted 90 standard diesel buses and completed the rehabilitation of the Mott Avenue station, including the ADA accessibility, and that was well received by the community.
Questions on our operating reports? All right, Steve, you ready on procurements?
Yes, I am. Good morning. The procurement package this month, which presents both New York City Transit and MTA CC procurements, includes 14 actions totaling $46.9 million in expenditures.
Any questions? Any questions on the procurements? Chuck?
The dental pay plus contract, can you tell me why there was not a competitive RFP conducted during the term of the contract? Why it's only after it has lapsed that we're doing that?
We're in the process of putting a scope of work together and seeking some insight from our consultants in terms of structuring the actual contract scope. This will be the first.
Couldn't we do that before the contract expires rather than just extend it and extend it?
Well, that's what we're trying to do right now. Yes.
It's expired, though.
Yes. But we're trying to go out competitively right now, once we get a new scope together.
If I can add, we had a very complicated procurement last year for medical benefits, which is the first time we'd done one in over 50 years. We're also going through a BSC transition, so that our HR staff, there's only so much that we can handle at one time. So that's part of the reasoning. The other reasoning is that this dental plan, we were very fortunate in getting this carrier to continue this coverage. It's way below what we think we'd get in the market. So those are the explanations.
I have one question further for you, if I may, and if you'd rather do this offline, that's fine. Have you secured or attempted to secure the input of the unions that are beneficiaries of this in terms of framing any replacement?
I don't know what I do believe that we discussed with the unions all benefits packages. I know we did that with respect to our medical benefits. I can't tell you exactly what the conversations have been.
The answer to the question is, as part of the collective bargaining process with those represented groups, they are part of collective bargaining negotiations, and we shouldn't discuss that in an open meeting here.
Any more questions on the procurement items? Is there a motion to approve them? Second? All in favor? Any opposed? Procurements carry. Thank you, Steve.
We have some action items for approval this month, Mr. Chair. One is an action item seeking board authorization to add an ADA accessibility project for the Dyckman Street Station on the Broadway 7th Avenue line in the 2010 through 14 capital program. The total project value, including design, is just over $13 million and will be funded from accumulated capital program savings.
What does that mean, accumulated capital program savings?
When you budget a project and then you add all those project budgets together, you have contingencies, and then you have an overall contingency. And as you realize savings throughout the program, you accumulate those savings and hold them on the side, and don't let the project managers at them. You hold them for use later on. So we're basically funding this $13 million out of accumulated savings.
All right. Is anybody opposed to ADA?
No,
and,
just let me ask Tom.
Street?
Are those savings from the recent work on the Dyckman Street Station, or from other places?
They're total program savings, right, Fred?
Oh,
yeah.
So then, just out of curiosity, when Dyckman was recently under work for quite a long time, which involved all kinds of GOs and everything, why wasn't the ADA component considered then? The money wasn't available then?
Well, the ADA component has to do with our key station program, 100 stations. That's part of an understanding agreement we have with a number of outside stakeholders. And the issue of adding ADA accessibility, whether it be in the form of an elevator or an escalator or both, is generally in double-digit millions of dollars. So it's with rare exception that we do that in addition to the commitment we made for the 100 key stations. We do it for various reasons, but on an exception basis. Because if we would do it at every station we were doing a renovation for, that would take a lot of money away from other elements of the capital program.
So assuming this is going to pass today, sorry, Bob? Oh, I see. So assuming this goes through today, which I'm sure it will, when would construction on this component start?
Fred?
It's already underway. We basically have modified the current construction project to now incorporate the added design and construction of the ADA.
It's underway right now? So the vote is sort of ceremonial, I guess, then.
Well, we still have to modify the capital program. We still have to modify the capital program. That's a formal requirement to come
Got it.
forward to the board.
Thank you.
There
Mark?
was a board action, Andrew, that initiated the first AWO, which was to reconfigure some space.
Mark, you have a question? No? Okay. Chuck?
Just so that we have clarity, as I understand it, on those stations that do not fall within the 100 that you have committed to, you have provided, as I understand it, bus service that has accessibility that will fill the void until such time as you can get to those stations. Is that correct?
The bus system is 100% accessible, so that's one of the, once again, use of the word key elements of our key station program. The fact that we do have a 100% accessible bus system enables us to be able to provide other means for people to access the system where there is an ADA device at a station.
Mark?
So why are you spending this money on ADA accessibility at Dyckman Street?
As a result of litigation brought forward against the authority.
And does that specify Dyckman Street
Yes, it does.
specifically?
And if we go much further, we ought to discuss it in executive session.
Okay.
Fred?
Is that the only place where litigation is currently pending? Is that the only station?
Currently, yes. Yes.
Did I not-
This case has actually been settled. It's not pending any longer.
It's been settled. Did I not hear a lawsuit being filed about Parkchester?
I don't think we've received formal receipt of it.
There's been
Okay.
discussion in numerous press conferences about it, but no follow-up whatsoever.
Thank you.
Anything else we shouldn't discuss? Okay, folks, we technically need to modify the capital program to add the Dyckman Street ADA accessibility project. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, the capital program is accordingly modified. Service changes. We have two little ones, I think, don't we?
Yes, and Peter will summarize them so we can have any discussion.
Okay.
And these are only for information, correct, Peter?
Right. These are for information. The first one is out in Queens, the Q48 route, which is from LaGuardia Airport into Flushing. It's part of a number of changes that DOT made in traffic configuration in that area. We've been working closely with them to try to reduce the conflicts among the various bus routes. It's a very crowded, congested area. After a lot of work with them, we are relocating a bus terminal across the street, which requires the Q48 to be extended, which has a minor operating cost impact to that. Just extend it around another block to turn around. The second item is the S79 Select Bus Service, which is introduction of Select Bus Service to Staten Island. This route is a route from Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, via Highland Boulevard, which is the heaviest bus corridor in Staten Island, and then over to the Staten Island Mall. It'll be, again, working with both New York City Department of Transportation and a number of the elected officials in Staten Island. It'll be a significant improvement in travel time that will benefit all the bus routes in the corridor. There will be bus lanes in a portion of the route during the peak periods. The S79 itself will become a limited stop service that will be significantly faster. It will have the same kind of markings that the other SBS routes do. However, because the number of boardings per stop is much lower, and so the dwell time issues aren't as great in this area, we will be using the standard form of fare collection on this route. But the other improvements in terms of traffic signal improvements at the intersections and the bus lanes and bus improvements and streamlining the route in a few cases will result in at least a 20% decrease in travel time for riders along the route.
And that starts in September, right?
Right. That will commence in September.
One question, Mark. Peter, how will this affect the S78 route?
There are several routes that will continue to provide local service along the corridor. Because some people at local stops will shift to those routes, we're actually including additional service on those local routes. That's actually some of the cost associated with this. We also anticipate that all the routes in the corridor, there's a lot of express routes as well, will benefit from the bus lanes, from the traffic signal timing, from the enforcement of the bus lanes that will be part of SBS. So all those things collectively should help the other routes as well.
But there's no diminution of service to, say, Tottenville.
No, in fact, there's actually an increase during peak periods.
Thank you.
Why do these schedule improvements require approximately $300,000 more for that local service? How'd that come about?
In the prior applications of SBS, there's been a limited and local service, for example, on the Fordham Road, the BX12. And so we adjusted service, we actually added service to the limited as it became SBS. In this case, the level of service on the S79 is not enough to split it into two separate routes. So the S79 will become essentially the express, the limited stop service along the corridor, serving about 70% of the riders at the peak stops. But there will be some riders added to the local services that remain, so we're adding service there. We will, of course, after it goes in, evaluate all that and adjust service up or down on each of these routes as it requires once we see how riders shift.
All right. Well, thank you for paying such diligent attention to Staten Island. Special reports, Tom?
Special reports. We have the regular update in the AFC program, but we do have a presentation on fast tracks. I'll ask Joe Leader to be relatively quick in it. We've now had 7 fast tracks experience-wise under our belt. We're learning from each one. Productivity is exceptionally high. Safety is very high. Our ability to get a lot of work done, production is fantastic. And we'd like to, give you this report and our initial financial outlook as it relates to it.
We'd like to start off with a video.
We're here at Brooklyn Bridge Station for the first night of Fast Track, a new initiative here at New York City Transit where we're trying to take advantage of taking one of our lines out of service and pull together a lot of different maintenance activities for our employees to be able to work and get a lot of work done, and to do so safely and not have to worry about clearing up trains.
I'm the Chief Coordinator for the Fast Track Initiative for the Department of Subways and Maintenance of Ways Division. And we're pretty excited with the results of what has been going on. We've had over 900 people per day working on a total of about 400 maintenance tasks, ranging from station painting to track work, replacing plates, rails, and working on signals, washing the walls.
We've accomplished maintenance tasks that we've never thought we could accomplish before, that would have taken months to do.
We're able to accomplish a lot more, I believe, because we don't have to deal with trains running and the customers on the platforms. Everything is empty, there's no one around. We feel that we've accomplished a lot on this shutdown, and we're happy with the progress we got done. And we hope that the riding public will feel the same way too when they start going to work tomorrow. So let us know. Come on down to check it out. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. 4 areas were chosen in the Central Business District because of the alternative service that we provide on other lines. Only 4 areas were chosen to keep it simple for the first year for our customers in order to allow them to get used to the process. Fast Track occurs over 4 nights, Tuesday through Friday, 10 to 5, and the areas chosen were the Lexington, 6th Avenue, 7th Avenue, and the 8th Avenue lines. Some of the major benefits are Fast Track creates a safer work environment by eliminating train traffic. As a result, Fast Track creates longer work windows that allows our workforce the time needed to perform quality and more intensive maintenance work.
It also allows New York City Transit to perform deferred infrastructure repairs, including structural beam replacement and painting, which requires the stoppage of trains and/or customer traffic. Our long-term goal is to reduce a growing backlog of work orders and reduce delays. A good example of how effective the program has been was visible in April when a water main break caused flooding at the Chambers Street station on the IRT. Although train service was temporarily suspended, once the water was shut off by DEP, the drains that were recently cleaned on the fast track took all the water, and we didn't need any portable pumps to pump out the water. The success of fast track has been made possible by the extensive planning and coordination effort put forth on a weekly basis through meetings held by senior managers from all divisions, as well as meetings with the TWU. On the scheduled nights of fast track, the coordination effort intensifies and is made possible by the piggyback desk and the use of zone managers, a creation made during the planning efforts of our senior managers. Passenger assistance staffing helps coordinate the message and passage of our customers, and this continues every fast track. And we are looking towards now creating an MOW planning group who can take fast track this new concept to another level. The results of our first quarter...
All right, what is MOW?
Maintenance away. The results of fast track has been extraordinary. Using the iceberg theory, 80% of the work performed is not seen by the public, but it is extremely important to the day-to-day operation of our system. The Division of Track has removed over 80,000 pounds of scrap and debris, cleaned and scraped over 80,000 track feet. Most importantly, they have completed over 450 backlog work orders. Third Rail Operations has cleared over 10,000 work orders and has scraped and cleaned over 57 track feet under the Third Rail, which will help in reducing track fires in the future. The Division of Power has improved our communication system by installing over 2,000 feet of new cable and has inspected over 200 manholes for future projects. The Division of Signals has utilized this opportunity to perform intensive maintenance and inspections of signal equipment, including switches. The Division of Infrastructure has performed sound and tap operations and has addressed many water leak conditions through grouting, as well as replaced steel members, and has performed over 13,000 feet of drain cleaning. The Division of Escalators and Elevators has utilized the shutdown to perform heavy maintenance on equipment, as well as reduced a backlog in outstanding work orders. And the Division of Electronic Maintenance has performed inspections on our fire alarm systems along the way, our CCTV locations, and MOW Engineering has performed modifications to 5 signal locations. Regarding the 20% of the iceberg that our customers see each day, the Division of Station has washed and relamped over 5,000 lamps, scraped peeling paint in 9 stations, and has performed painting in 8 stations. Their work also included replacing over 100 stair treads at 4 stations, repaired rubbing board conditions at 26 stations, and performed heavy-duty cleaning at 51 stations. As well as New York City Transit employees, our contractors have also taken the opportunity to perform their work, which included some punch list work and also installing new equipment on projects. Throughout this process, we have been tracking the productivity gains on the fast track. The value is based on the difference in dollars of actual cost performing work under fast track from projected cost if this work was performed under traffic. The value is staggering. Over $5 million in cost efficiencies were achieved in the first quarter of 2012. There are some overtime costs incurred in fast track, mostly paid lunches and direct report penalties to the sum of $350,000 in order to maximize the work window given us. But the costs certainly are small in comparison to the productivity value gained. Throughout fast track, we have received good responses from our customers, especially those who have seen differences at their stations. We recognize, however, there are customers impacted by the nightly closures, and as per your request, we were asked to review this. In regards to travel time, fast track in general can add an additional 20 minutes to some commutes. During the first quarter, ridership decreased slightly during the Lexington Avenue and the 7th Avenue line fast tracks by approximately 3%. The loss in revenue was approximately $34,000. Although ridership slightly decreased, our adjacent lines and our bus ridership did see a small increase, and we believe this is the result of our customers taking alternative services as needed. Overall, the opinion of our customers has been very positive, as seen in the responses in our tweets, to general comments, or to the responses to the videos, one similar to the one you just saw.
Joe, before you leave this slide,
Yes.
the impact per nightly closure, 20 minutes added travel time, does that include the walk to an adjacent line?
Correct. Correct. That's the walk and the wait time.
With due respect, having ridden this system on shutdowns, I'd be very careful about saying that it's 20 minutes. Average.
And with, with
average
headways
of
being
what?
20 minutes in the middle of the night, your chances of, 20
on a
minutes is
sample
really
of-
optimistic, I think.
Well,
As of today, we have completed 7 fast tracks, and we continue to see positive results in reducing backlog and productivity value gains. For the second and third quarter fast tracks, we will continue to concentrate our efforts in performing inspections, maintenance, reducing defect backlog, and enhancing our station environment. For the fourth quarter, it is our goal to remove all scrap and debris as well as perform tube washers for all tube locations under fast track, ensuring that our under-river tubes remain in excellent condition in the future. Although we continue planning for the remaining fast tracks of 2012, we are moving forward and looking towards 2013 and expanding this fast track effort. Being considered for 2013 are the following locations: the Broadway BMT in the Central Business District, the Upper Lexington Avenue lines in Manhattan, the Concourse and the A line Washington Heights, and the Queens line from Queens Plaza to Roosevelt. That concludes our presentation, and I'll...
Can you leave it on that slide before you go anywhere?
Yeah.
With the exception of the first one on there, with the exception of the first 2 on there, I assume in the case, for instance, of the Queens Boulevard line, you would do that in one direction only and then have people ride back as opposed to have to change for a bus? Or are you talking about doing the whole trunk line?
These are the next lines that we're looking at. The thing about the 4 lines we chose was we chose those because they had readily apparent redundant lines in Manhattan. As we start to get to the outer boroughs, as we've said all along, we don't have that redundancy. So we have to look for ways in which we provide it either through buses or maybe reverse ride-back options. Right. However, these are the next areas that we need to do a lot of this work on. I can't emphasize more strongly that in my entire career here, the thing that has upset me is the issue of you have an aging infrastructure asset, the structural, the sound and tap, which Joe went through relatively quickly. Contract 1, built in 1904, went into service in 1904. You've got to go through and actually do things to make sure the structure is still in the condition you want it to be.
I'm not suggesting we shouldn't do this.
No, but I'm saying we need to take a look at how we do this and how we minimize the impacts. But I wanted to make sure I delivered that statement because we're able to work off backlogs we had not been able to work off in prior years.
You could even argue that the third one on the list has a redundant line because the 4 is not very far from that at all.
And we don't. And when we say we want to look at levels of redundancy and what alternate service strategies we put in, it's not going to be a unilateral decision. We want to have a discussion with people to make sure they understand what the impacts will be.
I think this program makes absolute sense. Clearly, not having to put everything down and let the train go through and then pick it up again. It has to be done. My only concern is, and obviously we need to be concerned about people's ability to travel notwithstanding the change. I think that to go out very publicly with a number of minutes that it's supposed to take you to get around this disruption is leading with your chin in a way that you really don't need to. I think that the value of the program speaks for itself, and you're obviously speaking very eloquently for it. And quite honestly, people need to suffer a certain amount of inconvenience in order for the system to be maintained and better. And that's just, that's kind of the way life is. I don't think that you need be unduly defensive on the service disruption. It gets disrupted. That's a fact.
One of the things we did notice, if you saw them in the numbers, you saw the ridership drop on the subway side, and you don't see a corresponding increase on the bus side. So people obviously are probably either carpooling or doing something different to get home, or changing their work patterns during that period of time.
Or they don't go out that night.
Correct.
Or they're sleeping in the office.
One of the benefits long-term, as I understood it, of this excellent program is to minimize the delays on the tracks, because there continue to be numbers 1 and 2 on the weekday delays are track gangs and right-of-way delays. Do you have any learning as of this date whether there have been meaningful
It's too early to tell. I mean, some of the work we're dealing with in terms of backlogs, we've basically gone through 2 cycles with the exception of one line, only one. So we've said from the start we do expect a decrease in the number of delays, but it may take an upward of 12 months or 18 months before you actually see a demonstrable change.
All right.
By the way, we do have there are numerous fast-track videos on YouTube. Two of these people were just spoke to extemporaneously, our own employees, but they truly do believe in it. But if you do take a look at those videos, they're really pretty interesting.
All right. We have follow-up reports too, Tom?
Yes. We have a report on diversity, and I want to introduce right now. Is Dawn Pennick here, please? And I know Joel Andrews is here. I'd like Dawn to come up too, please, if you could excuse yourself, Joe. Dawn Pennick is the Vice President of Human Resources, and Joel Andrews is the Vice President from Diversity. And we have the quarterly report, as do the other agencies, and Joel will provide a very brief overview if there's any questions. But certainly if you have any questions about diversity on an ongoing basis, either one of these 2 individuals can respond to questions you may have.
Good morning. The EEO and diversity report is our first report, and we thought it made some sense, we being the agencies, that the information get communicated to the committee in essentially the same way that we provide the information to the diversity committee, and so this report is reflective of that. The report shows information on our utilization of minorities and women in the workforce, shows information on the demographics of individuals who've been hired by New York City Transit between January 1st and March 31st of this year, as well as information on complaints alleging harassment and discrimination that have been filed with the Office of EEO and with external fair employment practices agencies such as the New York State Division of Human Rights. At the September committee meeting, we will provide detailed information to the committee on our efforts to address the underutilization that is indicated on page 9.1 of this committee book. Dawn and I stand ready to answer any questions that the committee members might have about this report.
Any questions for our diversity experts? Chuck?
Page 9.3 of the new hires as of March 8th. Are those figures included in the positive analysis on page 9.1?
Yes, they are.
It seems that in certain areas you have really made significant strides in that March period. But in others, I wonder, and I'm happy to discuss it with you offline in light of your pending litigations, but there are some glaring issues.
We'd be happy to discuss that with you, Mr. Wood.
I have a question as well, Mr. Chairman. Am I to understand that, and I appreciate the fullness of your report, this stands, I think, in contrast with some earlier reports we had witnessed this morning, so I want to congratulate you for it. But am I to understand that we are going to have more detailed commentary on how you intend to address
I believe that's the September. I believe that's the September meeting, and I believe there's coordination from the MTA, I believe through Michael Garner and Nuria, with respect to the messaging we need to get across from all the agencies, and in September there will be an overview of what's working, what's not working, and what we're doing to try to improve where utilization is lower than it should be.
So we'll have some degree of commentary on what we do about this in September?
Yes.
Why the delay?
This is the first time we've reported on it. No, I'm not exactly sure, but I mean, we have an ongoing program. We have been managing this, but that was the decision that was made. But we can certainly advance that discussion with you right now if you want. But the public report will be at the meeting in September.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Any further follow-ups, Tom?
Yes, I think. We also have the quarterly report on elevators and escalators, and I'd just like to point out that our performance continued to improve compared to the fourth quarter in 2011. Elevator availability was 98.1%, and escalator availability was 96.2% in quarter one, and we surpassed our goals in both areas. We believe that's a direct result of some of the changes we've made and some of the initiatives we've undertaken to try to improve availability and also improve reliability.
Yeah, you worked very hard on that. Well done. How about transit adjudication, Barry? Going to do that too?
That's just a normal report we put in, quarterly report.
Okay.
Is that solely fare evasion? No?
I think it's any violation of our regulations that can lead to a summons.
Chuck?
Elevators?
Sure.
Yankee Stadium. That's a very high visibility area. You've had a fair number of entrapments in that. Is there anything special you're doing about that?
Joe or Carmen?
Yeah, let me refer to it. I think
It's
we
page
had
9.9.
Yeah, we had one that I'm aware of. By the time we got out there, we had one incident I'm aware of that by the time we got out there, they had been able to release themselves, so it wasn't even something that we had to react to. But I believe there was no trouble found after we checked it. And it looks like there's been a few maintenance problems that required that were required, from a maintenance perspective. There were a couple of incidents, but John, I don't know if you want to comment on it.
No, well, just to say that there's a couple of 55-hour general orders coming up on the Jerome line. We're going to take advantage of them to take a look at those elevators.
55 orders?
The tracks will be out of service.
We generally, from 11 o'clock on Friday night till, I believe, 5 a.m. Monday morning, it's a 55-hour window. We'll take the station out of service.
We'll take the station out of service. We'll be able to take a look at those.
And three of those were the result of some power issues that were not related to transit.
The second part is equipment maintained by outside entities or third parties, page 9.24. Putting aside Court Square for a moment, is that a contract with the MTA that they maintain these, or what?
These are escalators or elevators that were usually as part of an easement agreement or some other kind of agreement. The building owner has an obligation to maintain the elevator or the escalator.
And if they don't, what do you do? Because you've got a fair number of them.
Well, we've just been, in fact, over the last few months, been working on internally a policy as between us and MTA Real Estate to improve how we enforce some of those agreements. Some of those agreements are old and are not well enough written, frankly, to enforce. I mean, we've had some particular problems. For example, I think it was at Lexington and 53rd.
Yep. Query, do you notify the building department?
I'm sorry?
Authority. Do you notify the building department? They have authority to issue summonses.
I can't speak to the actual what folks are doing, but I know that real estate and our folks are. We've developed an MOU, a memorandum of agreement, that we've begun to work on in terms of better enforcement.
What you're seeing here, this is a new report in the book, and it's exactly that, to call attention to the fact that these are not transit-related units, and that we really have to depend on the building owners for repair and maintenance. And so we are inspecting them 3 times a day, every day, and that's what you see tallied up in this report here. But again, it's to call attention, it's to get a better working relationship with these building owners, and I think it's having that effect.
Chuck, a former New York City Buildings Commissioner, is suggesting that if you do not get the building owners to do what they want, call up the building department and ask them to issue a summons. You might consider that as part of your arsenal.
They do a very effective job in that area.
Are we now ready for capital construction? Yes, folks, we are still building the East Side access, the 7-line extension, the Fulton Street station, and the 2nd Avenue subway. And Michael Haradnachu has been very busy giving what? Oh, Haradnachano, you know, I can't never get that right. Is now
Dr. H.
Dr. H has been busy personally giving tours of the 2nd Avenue subway on the weekends. And now everybody, after they have completed a tour, gets a hat with the new logo of the new line that will be running along the 2nd Avenue. I won't even tell you what it is. Even I have a hat. Thank you for spending all your weekends doing this. You're a big hit around 2nd Avenue, Michael.
It appears one way or another, not always. Right. Just briefly, I will report on the Fulton Center that the work is proceeding according to the schedule and is within budget, and we have made strides and progress in the regarding the master lease, and that will be an RFP will be out sometime in June. Let me go to the number 7 extension. I guess I'm trying to figure out how to work this one out. It doesn't work. Okay. Okay. I would like to report that our major contract, the running tunnels and station structures, has been completed as of April 27, 2012. And that is substantial completion, about 5 months ahead of our schedule. And they also completed Shaft A, and it was turned over to the system and finishes contractor in April. That is a very important, our turning over work to the system and finishes contractor is important for us to be able to complete the project in a timely fashion. Site L that we're looking at right now is the ventilation building at West 41st Street and Dyer Avenue. And the work continues there. And this is what you see is the picture on April of 2012. And this is May 2012. And you can see the significant progress. We expect to turn over to the system and finishes contractor on schedule in June of 2012, next month, and expect to have a substantial completion of the building on target by August of 2012. Site J, that is the main station entrance and ventilation building. The work continues, and again, this is a March picture. The next one will be a May, and you can see the amount of work that has been done. Concrete work is in progress, and this is another picture of the same thing, looking at a different level. The contractor is currently reporting being behind schedule. We have analyzed it. We are looking at mitigations, and we are continuously meeting, and we are very positive that we will be able to mitigate the delays. Site K, the construction was, this is the 35th, 37th Street at 11th Avenue. I don't think I have a picture of that. Construction was completed for the building extension on the 36th Street, and the contractor switched traffic over the newly completed east side of 11th Avenue. Through the end of March, we have done about 58% of all the work, but actually by now we have completed much more, and we expect to have substantial completion ahead of schedule, and that is going to be before the end of the year. The system and finishes contract, we have done about 10% of the work at this point, and we are pouring duct benches in the tunnels and approximately 50% complete. I'd like just to point one thing that I found it fascinating. The way we're bringing our rails into to the project. They are being welded in section of about 390 feet long and linden yards, so therefore there's a quality control on doing that. Then they're being loaded on a special modified train, and over a 2 nights period is being transported, in effect, traveling to 4 boroughs to make it into Manhattan. It goes up from Brooklyn via Manhattan into the Bronx, then it comes down, goes into Queens, makes a turnaround, and is being brought in. And it is phenomenal to see how this type of rail that are so long, they really behave in a very elastic fashion, almost like spaghetti, and they move about 4 at a time. So the expectation is that by the end of September, we'll be done and bringing it all in. Site P is a contract that is the last contract, and that we have received 4 bids. 2 of them below our budget. The contract is expected to be awarded in June, and it's about, I would say, $10 million below our budget. So that's actually the good news part of it. Second Avenue. I'm just going to try to give you a brief pictorial. What you see in red are the slurry wall panels in the 96th Street box that have been completed. What you see in yellow, they're to be completed. So we still have a lot of work to do on the east side of the box. This is a 72nd Street main cavern looking south. Practically in many locations we are down to the level of the tracks. And the work is proceeding well. We expect to complete the blasting in this June, and whatever is remaining is going to be just some blasting in ancillary access to the cavern.
Well, why is that cavern so huge appearing? I mean, it looks like you could send 8 trains through that thing.
Well, no, we're only going to be able to take 2. But it has the center platform, it has the benches, and we have a mezzanine, and so all in all, I mean, it is a very large cavern. In fact, and if you care next time around to come, you'll be able to see it. It's spectacular in many ways. We have removed by now 1 elevator, so we only have access into 1 location. This is due to the way the work is progressing. We're starting the concreting very soon, so you know, that's the size. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Mr. Chairman, that's a station, so that, as you will see, they'll be on the lower level, and then there'll be mezzanine.
It's a mezzanine, yeah.
Where in between stations, it's just a simple bore that goes through.
We have 22-foot tunnels throughout, so the height of the tunnel is 22 feet, and then we have that above it. This is the tunnel that is going into the 63rd Street, and this is really the forming of the invert and walkways. Sorry, I think I put the wrong move here. And this is, we already are putting the waterproofing and start the concreting, so the work is progressing well. In addition to that, we have a stub cavern. The 63rd Street will be a bi-level station. We are enlarging the existing station to one side, so we're bringing 2 tubes, one on top of each other. and this is the forming of the a wall, and that's in effect after it was done. This is just before we're putting the waterproofing. This is just to smooth out the wall in that area, so then we're putting the waterproofing in front of it. The overall, we have had a bid opening for the 96th Street finishes. We had 7 bidders, with the lowest bid being Cruz Stanley, a joint venture, at $324 million, leaving behind, basically, we're below budget about $73 million, so that was actually excellent. We were able to get excellent bids there. The community outreach, we continue to have tours. The last one was in May. We'll pick it up again in September, primarily due to the fact that we would like to advance work on 86th Street before we actually progress additional tours. If there are no questions, that's about it.
Any questions for Dr. H? Well, thank you, and keep building. To adjourn. All in favor? Thank you very much, everybody.